Hi, everybody, and here we're back. I'm Grace Bubeck, and the session today is with Gina Lake, who, hi, Gina.
Hi, Grace.
So, we'll be speaking about Gina's quite special connection to Jesus, and we'll see where that takes us. So, Gina, do you want to start us off by telling us what your connection with Jesus maybe was in the past and what it is now, or just what it is now?
Sure. Well, I was brought up Catholic, so I did have a connection with Jesus and Mary as a child and as a teenager until I left the church when I was in my 20s, or actually freshman in college. And I pretty much put that behind me as I just didn't like the fear and guilt and didn't really think a lot about Christianity even, particularly. And then more recently, as you know, since 1999, I've been involved with non-duality.
Mm-hmm.
And about a year ago, or I guess a little more than that, in 2012, there was a shift that happened spiritually, and I began receiving a lot of Christian imagery. And just and I had this experience which I described in the book that I recently wrote by Mary, which is called 10 Teachings for One World. I had this experience where I was sitting by a statue of Mary. I was on retreat and had been meditating for 5 days, and the statue I began to hear the statue speak to me. I began to hear Mary speak to me, is really what I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And the statue also kind of came alive visually for me, so it became animated. And Mary began to speak to me just in a very loving way, and she said that she might like to in the future bring through some messages or write something through me.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, I've only been speaking to this particular being who has been my mentor for the last 25 years. I haven't spoken to other beings in other dimensions except for this one mentor whom I trust explicitly. And so this was a new thing to open up to speaking to Mary, but it was very beautiful energy, and I was in a very trustworthy place, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
very aligned. And shortly after that experience, other ascended masters, including Jesus, began to approach me and introduce themselves to me. And so I opened to that, and whatever it was that happened to me, it was somewhat like it felt like it was an initiation, some kind of a bringing into the fold, like I was brought into the fold with these masters. And it just was so beautiful. I felt so held. And so they became a part of my meditation and a part of my spiritual path, you could say, from that point on. And it wasn't until a year later that Mary asked me to write a book. And it just was a very short book. It only took me 6 weeks to write. I wrote it last summer. And then
It's a beautiful book.
Thank you. The energy was so motherly, so nourishing, so sweet. I just was immersed in it, and I felt so grateful for it. And then not long after that, Jesus asked me if I would be willing to write a series of small books. And that I wrote the first of that series in the fall, and that's called Choice and Will. And that energy that came through from Jesus is very different from the Mary energy, much more masculine, rational, but loving, but very loving. And he wanted to talk about choice and will, about that very mysterious and complex subject of free will, which a lot of non-dual people have debates about, right? And so, without going into that, my connection with Jesus is primarily that a working connection, in that we're going to start a second book probably next month. Outside of that, I don't go to Jesus personally for guidance or anything like that. It doesn't seem to be appropriate to me. But I feel his presence, and sometimes he does come in and say something to me. And and as part of this new thing happening in my life, I've reconnected to my, you could say, Christian roots, which I do feel go way, way back. And Jesus said that the reason that he's speaking to me is because I have been a monastic for many, many lifetimes in the Catholic Church, which is something I had always felt, because I have such a strong resonance and wanted to be a nun when I was a child. And I just want to say that you don't have to be special to have Jesus connect with you. And that's one of the main things that he wants me to convey too, is that anyone who prays to Jesus is connected to him. He's very much involved with the planet and with the evolution of the planet and with human beings' evolution. And if you pray to him, you will be connected. You will be heard by him. And so there's nothing, special in that sense. I am connected to him because I've been devoted to him, and because I'm devoted to the principles and the truth that Jesus teaches. And the truth, as I see it, is the non-dual truth. The truth is the truth now and today, that is the truth with a capital T, is the same truth it was when Jesus was alive. It's the same truth that he was teaching when he was alive. It's the same truth that non-dual people are teaching today. Maybe the words are a little different. Maybe they aren't couched, the truths aren't couched in parables anymore, because they don't have to be. But the truth is the truth, and Jesus was certainly teaching non-dual truth back in his day. And
how would you put that truth? I mean, what words would you put that truth in yourself?
The main truth that Jesus was teaching was that God is within, that heaven is within, that you are divine, that oneness infuses all of creation and is expressed and active in creation. And this is perhaps one difference between how some non-dual teachers speak about the truth, and not all of them, and how Jesus would speak and how I would speak, is that this oneness that non-dual people speak about is here in this earth, in this duality. It is infused throughout duality. The oneness came alive through duality. It is duality. And to waking up is not about waking up out of this world. It's about waking up into the truth that you are the world. And so I think that's a very important distinction. And one of the things that Jesus said to me when I asked him about if you would be a non-dual teacher today, and you put this up on your website, was that he would be a non-dual teacher if it meant that non-dual teaching brought people into their divinity and into active participation in the world, if it transformed individuals and the world. and was not just for personal liberation and escaping the world. So the teaching is that this life matters, this world matters, life matters, and we're all here to be an expression of that oneness in this life in our unique way. And Jesus was wanting to be sure that people knew that human beings could be God, that he was a model of divinity walking the earth. And his message was that we too are meant to be divinity walking the earth and doing what we do. And so
maybe even more strongly, we are divinity walking on this earth. Not just we're meant to be, we are.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I wonder if you would mind if I read something that Jesus gave to me on this subject, because I thought it was so beautifully put, and I know that reading out loud is not the best thing on camera,
sure.
But
go ahead.
It's just a couple paragraphs, and I think it encapsulates what we're saying really well. Jesus said, "Yes, of course I would be a non-dual teacher. Perhaps the more relevant question is, what kind of non-dual teacher would I be? The truth sets people free to live in the peace and happiness that is their birthright. I would speak the truth and live the truth, just as I did then and just as many are doing and trying to do today. Anyone has the capacity to be a Christed being, which is one of the things I taught. The kingdom of heaven is within, and so it is for everyone to discover this. That is the truth I came to teach. This truth transforms consciousness and transforms planets. It shifts the responsibility to each individual within society to live in love and peace, which is the only possible way that love and peace can come to earth. If love and peace are not born within the human heart, how can they be alive in your social institutions? You cannot change society without changing the human heart, without opening it to the truth behind all existence and the truth within you, that you and everything else is divine, not just of divine creation, but divine in essence. You are meant to discover this within this life and to live as that, not discover this for the purpose of escaping this life. I have not left this planet because I love it and humanity so. I continue to work on the plane of existence that I exist on to fulfill my mission of saving humanity, not from a Satan that is exterior to humanity, but from the negative tendencies within humanity. I am working through many who are open to me and willing to receive my energy and give it to the world in various ways. All that is necessary to be such an instrument is a sincere heart and devotion to the truth. What is truth? The truth is that each and every one of you is divine, not just an aspect of the oneness, but oneness itself. Just as a piece of a hologram contains the whole, each one of you contains the oneness. Each person is not only one with the Creator, but the Creator himself, herself, manifested as an individual. I and my Father are one. We are the same. So what you said, Grace, absolutely, that the oneness is here. It is us. It's not separated out. And so duality is oneness.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for this. I mean, it's powerful, you know. And it's kind of touching to hear this so directly, presuming that this is Jesus' teaching. And, you know, I did want to talk to you about this because I think also the people who are in the retreat would be interested in hearing about this. You know, like somebody who doesn't know anything, I mean, just to use the word channeling, because this is really what you're doing, how can you know? I mean, it's just I'll just ask a kind of very innocent question. How can you know that this is really Jesus speaking to you or through you?
Yeah. It's not possible to know for sure. And so for me, it's never been possible for me to know who I was speaking with, or for any channel to know that. Mm-hmm. There is a certain energy that you're in touch with in addition to the words that has a uniqueness and individuality to it. So the various beings that I speak to have their own individualized energy and their unique tone and way of speaking and way of being that defines them or identifies them to you, and yet you don't really know if that energy is Mary or is Jesus. You don't really know that. And there's so many things in life we can't know. But for me, what's important, and this is something that Jesus said in the introduction to Choice and Will, is that it's much more important that the words are helpful to you, that they ring true, that they speak truth to you, than to have than where they came from. And so every time I've ever written anything that came from these other dimensions, it was always up to me to decide whether it was worthy of putting out to the public, whether it was helpful, whether it was good, whether it was true to me. And really, that's all I can say, is that what I've written has been helpful and true to me, and so I offer it as possibly helpful and true to someone else. It's helped me evolve, and that's the test. The test is in the effectiveness of the words, how they help you to live a more loving and peaceful and true existence. And for me, the beings that I'm speaking with have given me gift after gift after gift of insight and understanding and truth and compassion and love and wisdom. And so I can no longer question this. I had years. Yeah, I've had plenty of years of questioning, and I've always, had a part of me that was asking that question. Is this true? Is this true? And I just have to let the words speak for themselves. And the thing about channeling, and I hate to use that word because it's like a dirty word. The religious people don't like it. The scientific people don't like it. No one's happy with it except New Agers who created that word. But the truth is that all of us are channeling or bringing through energies, information, ideas, inspiration, art, music, all sorts of things from the other dimensions, because we are not alone. We are connected in this oneness to other dimensions who are assisting the evolution of this dimension. And how do they communicate with us? They communicate with us. They have to use our minds. They use our ability to perceive on certain subtle levels, and certain people like myself have the ability to just receive their words in our heads, we're like telephone receivers, and the words come into my head as clear as a bell. As if I'm having a conversation with you, I can have a conversation equally easily with one of these beings, and I don't have to be in a special state of consciousness or anything. And this is a great gift. It's it's not mediumship where an entity comes into my body and uses my body and I'm unconscious. That's one. Mediumship has given channeling a rather bad name because there have been all sorts of negative entities who have entered people's bodies and used them, and I would not allow that. I don't need to do that. So if you reach a point where you're able to receive words, and I've heard Adyashanti has said often in stories that he's told about himself that he's received words in his head that told him to do this or that, a sentence here and there. Eckhart Tolle said power of now was just given to him. It was just, he just sat down and it poured out of him. And this is true of so many works of art, so many books. This is not that unusual a phenomenon. But if it happens within the context of a religion to a priest or a nun or something, they call it a miracle and they respect it. But if it happens outside of a religion, it's the devil. And it's really difficult to speak to people who have these beliefs, either scientific or religious. I have to keep to myself. I've had to keep to myself about this. I've had to keep around people who understand and support this. But to me, it is the greatest gift in my life, and I know that I'm here to share it, and I cannot turn my back on it. I cannot deny it. I try to not call it channeling, but here you go. We can't get around that either.
Yeah.
It's a difficult position I have found myself in. It's taken a lot of courage to put myself out there and say what I say. And when Mary and Jesus asked me to write something, there was a part of me inside that cringed because I know that it's not necessarily a good career move. But I can't say no, and especially when the books are so lovely.
Yes. So, yeah. I totally understand that you cringed because I kind of shied back when this theme for this retreat came to me. I mean, it wasn't actually easy to embrace.
Yeah.
And I imagine for similar reasons, because in non-dual circles it's not very cool to talk about Jesus. And there is also, I don't know, it's just whatever it is, doesn't matter. But I'll be very honest with you, Gina. When I read your Mary book, I could really feel that very caring, gentle, mothering energy that was infused in that book. I mean, it was so beautiful, so lovely. It was like a I don't know, it was like a blessing, So I'm glad you wrote that book. It's beautiful to receive that. And when I read the Jesus book, somehow it was harder for me to feel the energy in that book. And somehow I couldn't quite connect it in the same way either to my own experience of Jesus and the energy, which of course comes, I shared that in the first session. So for those of you who haven't seen it, I'll just repeat it quickly. Jesus came to me at a certain point in my life, and he kept communicating the quality of his heart to me, and the quality of the total openness of his heart. to everybody and everything. And that quality, that open heart quality, doesn't even have to be called love. I mean, traditionally it is called love, but that open-hearted quality really communicated itself to me over and over and over, because it kept happening, and it transformed me. I mean, it led to a profound heart opening. Like you say, I mean, I can't any longer say no, because whatever is there, so it has to be said yes to. At some very basic level, and so somehow, I didn't quite sense that energy in the book until the very end of it, where he starts talking about love and how when we surrender to to life, to the higher will, to the will of God, thy will, then we are in this loving movement of life. And but somehow, I just wanted to put that to you. The Mary book was very strong in the way it communicated itself, and the Jesus book wasn't quite so strong. So I wonder whether you had any comments on that.
Well, it is very different. It is much more explaining something, and it's trying to clarify a very confusing subject that many non-dual people struggle with and are confused with and actually misunderstand. And so I think that he just wanted, through me, to connect with people who are struggling with that idea or misunderstanding that idea and correcting it. And it is just, there are, I understand, going to be 3 books. So that was just, it's just a small book. And there will be 2 others. So we'll see what comes through there. But yes, it wasn't specifically about love at all. In fact, it was more Jana, right? It was more it was more speaking to issues of the mind, not the heart, as non-dual people often do, and which brings up another issue of how Jesus doesn't seem like he might be a non-dual teacher, because it is a path of the heart. His path is a path of the heart. It's a path of peace and love, and non-dual teachers don't generally speak about peace and love. They don't generally speak about the heart. And yet that's probably what is missing from their teaching. That I think that Nisargadatta's very famously often quoted quote, that when I see myself as nothing, that is wisdom. When I see myself as everything, that is love. He very much represented this 2 aspects of the truth. That the truth is both nothingness and everything. That non-dual awakening is both awakening into a realization that you are nothing and the realization that you are everything. And with only half of that realization, you've got only half of that realization. So I think that some of the non-dual teachers who are not expressing heart or involvement in the world, or saying that the world is an illusion and that it doesn't matter what people do, I think they possibly have just waken up to the I am nothing, and not waken up to I am everything, which is the heart. So the complete realization is not only a waking up out of the limited mind and into the realization of the greater mind or the greater nothingness or emptiness, whatever you want to say. But it's also an opening up of the heart to the recognition that you are everything, that you are what is life.
Yeah.
And so that's the path of the heart. And the path of the heart is a path of devotion. And non-dual teachers don't generally speak about devotion because it seems too dualistic.
Yes. Yes.
But many of the teachers did have devotional practices, including Nisargadatta. So there is room. There are two sides to the coin of realization, and if you have only one side of that coin, and you've not seen that you are everything, then there's going to be a dryness and a lack of heart in your teaching and in your way of being. And so that's the kind of non-dual teacher that Jesus would not be.
Yes, definitely. And it's interesting because, you and Francis are totally agreed on this, because Francis also stressed that, he did a little meditation with us, which it comes out of the Christian tradition, centering prayer. And it was directed into, or the focus was in the heart. And he said exactly the same thing. He said, the waking up into the world and the heart dimension of all of this is just incredibly important. And just to add, actually, your Jesus book, it's beautifully clear. And actually, I liked I really resonated with the way it speaks of free will, because the main theme, correct me if I'm wrong there, is as long as there's not a realization of our unity with life, with everything, of oneness, there is a sense of individuality, and as long as and if there is this sense of individuality, there is free choice in the sense that we can choose whatever, and there will be also an opposition between my will and thy will. But at some point, as oneness, and to the extent that oneness is realized, there is no longer a distinction between my will and thy will. And then it really is thy will be done, because that is life unfolding. That is life happening in us, around us, everywhere. And so there's no longer this opposition, and there's no longer any point to free will, because all that's happening is life unfolding, and we do our part in it.
Yeah.
Is that a
I can't disagree with anything that you said. I agree with it, and I wouldn't mind giving a little synopsis myself.
Yes, go ahead, please do.
It can be really simply stated in a couple of sentences, really, just that the picture that this book paints is that, first of all, when we are deeply conditioned and not free from believing that we are the mind, the ego, and the made-up self that the mind creates, as long as we believe that we are that, then in a sense we don't have free will, because we're just acting out of our conditioning. We're following our thoughts, we're acting out our feelings. We're not, we think we have free will, we think we're making choices, but it's a very robotic kind of existence where our conditioning is running the show. our
Yes.
programming as a human being is running the show. The ego's running the show. And
Yes.
then
I've forgotten about this. I'm glad you're adding that in.
and then there comes this blessed moment in our how many hundreds of lifetimes when we, and so many people are waking up to this now, when we realize that we are not the thoughts that run through our mind, and that we have a choice about whether to believe them or not. And we have a choice about how to react to life. We have a choice in what kind of attitude, beliefs, and actions we have in response to circumstances we find ourselves in. We have a choice, and this is most of the people that are reading my books, that I'm involved in a teaching kind of a role, are at this very crucial place where they're just discovering they have discovered that they are not their thoughts and they are not their feelings. And how to live in the world when you discover that is a very, very rich place, and we're all learning to do that. We're all learning to embody this truth more and more. And so as we learn to do this, there is a moment-by-moment choice of whether to believe our thoughts or not believe our thoughts. And that's going to create a very different existence. If we believe our thoughts, we'll go back to the robotic existence, the programmed existence. If we don't believe our thoughts, we will have to discover a new way to live from essence, to live from our essence. And so this, in order to wake up and to really learn to embody that, there is a choice to be made moment by moment of what we give our attention to. Are we going to give our attention to our thoughts, to the old programming, or the here and now? The here and now, if we give our attention to the here and now, we will drop into the flow, we will express our essence, and we will begin to learn to live more and more from that place of thy will. When we become very, very adept at living in the present moment, then the mind has lost its pull, or is nearly disappeared, if not disappeared. And when there is no longer a choice between the mind and the present moment, there's no choice. So we're back to being in a place of there's no choice anymore. There's just thy will. When you only have one choice and not two choices to make, something to choose between, all you have left is one choice, which is thy will, then you don't even call that a choice. That's just living in alignment with thy will. So it's interesting.
It's often called the choiceless choice, right?
The choiceless choice. So it's interesting that prior to this moment, prior to awakening, our life can feel choiceless in a sense. We're a victim of our programming. And after we've fully deepened into the awakeness, we also move into a place where choice falls away and it's no longer an issue. But for the many, many people who are waking up today, for the people that non-dual teachers are here for, choice is so critical. So for me to tell people that you have no choice when they're at that point, when they need to choose to be present in the moment in order to continue to unfold in their evolution, it is a silly teaching. It's silly to tell people who are still in the midst of seeing that they need to choose to be present, to tell them they don't need to choose. That's premature. It's premature.
Right.
They're speaking. Those people must be speaking from a place. I'm not even sure they are, but they presumably are speaking from a place where they no longer feel that that choice is viable. But that isn't a good teaching for those who still feel the choice is there.
Yes.
So I think this is a very important point to make, and it's an important point for the non-dual people people involved in these teachings to understand, because if they think that they don't have to meditate, that choosing presence isn't a choice that's necessary to make, that they don't need to do anything to unfold further, this is not a helpful message. And there are a lot of teachers like myself who are trying to correct this within non-dual circles. It's just not a helpful message for a lot of people. What we discover even after awakening, that there is a place for meditation, that there still may be a need to choose. You know, conditioning can come up even when you're very far along the path. After awakening, conditioning can still come up, and at that point, you need to choose to be aware that you've been caught, and you need to choose to maybe be present with whatever feeling you're stuck in, to be present to it, and to inquire and to use your tools to unravel that knot that has caught you. And this is how conditioning gets healed. So there's all sorts of place for choice until we are fully liberated, and I don't know anybody who is.
Yes. You know, I so agree with you. And maybe I'd even say, you know, at the beginning, when the conditioning is running the show, you know, there's an illusion of free will.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people have that illusion that, you know, they have free will. They can choose how they want. They don't see the conditioning yet.
And they do. It's just that there is a certain amount of free will even with the programming. It's just that it's not very much.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
I mean, the maneuvering space is very limited. Yes. Because of the conditioning. And as the conditioning is shed, it becomes wider and wider. And, you know, I would say, I mean, not all non-dual teachers speak.
No, of course
say
not.
There's no free will. I mean, you know, my own teacher, Gangaji, and her teacher, Papaji, both speak very strongly about the need for vigilance.
Yes.
You know, in the sense that the deepening of awakening and the undoing of conditioning, the undoing of, you know, Maya, you know, the veil that veils the full beingness. I mean, that just keeps happening. That keeps happening. And certainly, you know, in my own life, I see that kind of going on and going on and going on, and it gets more and more subtle as the years go on. You know, it gets more and more subtle, but it's still going on.
Yes.
And
I agree. Most of the non-dual teachers that I know do not speak in such absolutist terms, but the few that do have had quite an impact on a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people, the non-dual teachers who speak in such absolutist terms, I think because they've been so blown out of their small self, and their small self they've been so blasted out into a place of no self that they seem like they are so they've reached the ultimate, because it's such an unhuman kind of a place. A place that is, you know, a place where there is no desire or no will is very, where there's no desire and no will is a place that human beings have a hard time understanding. So they're very impressed by this idea that there's no self, there's no will, there's no desires. But it seems that there's something missing there in that realization. In that, to me, to me it seems that, well, it seems that I just don't see love there. So, you know, to me, if there isn't love in some teaching, I can't, it confuses me. So, any speaking of the truth to me needs to include a love and awe and wonder of this gift of life that is all around us.
Yeah, yeah.
And
you know, in many teachers, it does, except that I find, you know, often the you know, the main focus of the teaching is on the waking up and the mind, and you know, the aspect of love, of the, you know, and devotion and heart opening. It tends to have second place.
yeah.
And you know, I found that even in Adyashanti's Resurrecting Jesus book also, you know, the bulk of the book is about understanding the story of Jesus, his life story, as a symbol, as a metaphor for spiritual awakening. And you know, he even says the healing ministry, the face of the healing ministry in Jesus, it's like it's just a face, and really ultimately that wasn't what he came to communicate. And that may be true, but you know, to me the healing is so essential, because that's an expression of love. That's a direct response to suffering in people. And why, if he's able to heal, why wouldn't he? And of course, you know, people will come and they want to be healed, they want to be fixed, and they don't get the spiritual message in this. And Adyashanti writes very beautifully about that. You know, he sometimes, you know, Jesus said, I can't remember just quite how he puts it, but you know, there was healing physically, but there was also an invitation for them to heal spiritually. And people didn't necessarily understand that, because they were so focused on the physical healing. So there's an important point there, but you know, I also feel that the physical healing, or any form of healing, mental, emotional, it's an expression of love.
Yes.
And what's wrong with that? You know, and why does that need to get second place?
Well, Adyashanti obviously has a huge heart connection with Jesus, and has a very open heart himself. And yes, and yet he is a teacher in his own way, of, you know, using words and speaking about awakening as he does. Yeah.
Yeah. And yet, you know, I have a beautiful quote from him on the Living from Love website, where he talks about love as being the ultimate nature of reality. So it's like, you know, he's
yeah, you wanted a little more juice, but you know, you'll have to write that book yourself, I guess. You know, that's why we're all different. That's why we're all here, because this truth, as it comes through each of us as a unique instrument, is going to be slightly unique. You know. Yeah.
Yes.
And you know,
go ahead.
And maybe it's a male-female thing too. Maybe that's what we as women are here more to speak about than some of the men, you know?
Yeah, very possibly, very possibly. I just know, you know, in my own unfolding, it's interesting because there are phases when love is calling very strongly, you know, and when I did this, when this healing modality came to me, Heart of Love healing, which is really a form of healing that is based on love, on unconditional love, and the harmonization that takes place through that energy. And so healing is kind of periodically calling me back, and then I go back to, you know, a more focus more on awakening and the you know, the mind. But somehow I keep going back and forth, and who knows where that's going to take me, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
that's your
We'll see.
special contribution and piece in all this. It's really beautiful how each of us is here to discover our unique contribution, and we're all equally valuable to the whole for that.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Equally valuable. So important to know that. You know,
Yeah.
Jesus was so egalitarian. That's one of the things we are most impressed and most love about him, is how he treated everyone as valuable. This is the sign of a truly enlightened being, isn't it?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it certainly still speaks to people today. But you know, I also wanted to say, I mean, it's your unique gift that you have that ability to channel directly. And you know, as long as people aren't fully grounded in being, there's also a need to hear the truth spoken, isn't there?
It's very powerful. It was very powerful for me to have such words of compassion, love, and wisdom given to me at times when I was struggling.
Yes.
And you know, we serve that for each other as friends, as therapists. We serve that for each other. But it's very powerful to have these words come from this other dimension that often carry this other dimension with it, carry the energy of the being. This is something that moves people and touches people even in ways that they may not even realize. And so I feel so blessed to be able to be connected to that energy. And I just don't know how people who don't have that connection, I really feel for how difficult life must be, because I know that even with this connection, life is difficult. It's very difficult being a human being. It's been difficult to be me. And I've had this beautiful connection that is constantly uplifting me. And so I think one of the most important messages I want to give today, and Jesus also wants to give again, is just to say, and this is also throughout the Mary book, 10 Teachings for One World, be willing to receive the guidance and the love and the healing that is available from other dimensions. Open yourself. Believe and trust that there are beings on other dimensions whose sole purpose is to serve us. And, you know, open to that, because the door can only be closed on our side. It cannot be closed on their side. And we are all equally valuable. We are all equally worthy. I'm not any more special of receiving this connection. I just believe in the connection. I've been devoted to, I don't know, saints or beings on other dimensions. It's been easy for me to believe that they exist. It's been easy for me to feel their energy, to feel them. But if you want to, if anyone wants to, just be willing to feel it, to connect, throw it out there, make that intention, invite Jesus. Now I'm sounding so Christian. Invite Jesus.
Go for it, Gina.
Invite Jesus into your heart, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But truly, and you know, in all fairness to Christians, when I watch people who are taken over by their connection with Jesus, that is absolutely true. I may not believe what they believe. I may not have swallowed the dogma that they have swallowed.
Yes.
But so many Christians are Christians and devoted to the depths because they do know that connection. They have a personal connection. You can see it. They feel it, and it changes their life. So God bless them. God bless them. They are the same as we are that way. They know the truth. They know that there is something so beautiful that's beyond us that we are here to bring into this world, to transform ourselves, to transform this world with that energy. And there's nothing more valuable.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're so right. And maybe there's also place for humility, and realizing that even not even all the traditional religions capture something of that truth.
Oh yes.
In that whole system, and they can be points of access for people to connect with those truths.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just like, I think sometimes non-dual people or people in that tradition, and I would include myself in that until very recently, and maybe even until that retreat, that there's a certain arrogance about like having the truth of the truth.
Yes.
In having that awakening to the truth of being, to the truth of God, and seeing that other approaches are still kind of caught in duality. And yes, that is true, and yet the living experience of people, like you're saying, I mean, they can be alive with that living presence. And they can be Christians, they can be Muslims, they can be Sufis, they can be Jews, they can be Hindus, any of the religions.
It's all good and it all serves. It's all meant to be part of this whole experience. Many paths, many teachers, it's all good. We all get exactly what we need. We're at different places and we get what we need. There's room for every kind of teacher, every kind of teaching, including false teachings. They teach us something too, right? So, it's all, and that's oneness for you. It's all included. It's all one. It's all created by the one. It's all an expression to assist us in our evolution. One of the points that I'm not sure which book, Choice and Will or 10 Teachings. No, Choice and Will, because it's about choice. The point was made that we cannot make a wrong choice. Every choice leads to our evolution. And so it's not that there is some judging God up there who is watching and seeing if we are going to make the right choice or not and punishing us if we don't. It's not like that. This whole world was set up to be an exploration through the gift of free will, through choice, we get to explore every possibility. Choose this and see what happens. Choose that and see what happens. Oh, now I'll choose this. Now I'll choose that. The Creator gets to experience every possibility. And each of us is a unique choosing machine, right? Because, you know, every choice I make is being run through my body, mind, and my experience and my personality pattern. So even the same choice, if it's made through me or if it's made by you, it's going to be a different experience for the oneness.
Yes.
Isn't that cool? It's all good. It's all good. We can't. How benevolent, how beneficent this life is, that we cannot make a mistake. That it's all evolving us and everyone else. Every single choice we make evolves all of us, and where it's evolving us is towards becoming more loving human beings. That's where we're all headed, because when we make a choice that leads to suffering, that choice usually has been born out of ego, not love.
Yes, yes.
And suffering comes from the so-called bad choice of following the ego, but turns out it isn't a bad choice because we learn. We can't help but learn from the suffering.
Yes.
So it's designed in a most benevolent way to bring us home.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that is so true. And having grown up in Germany with 2 world wars and the suffering that they caused, and the Holocaust, of course, and the immense suffering that Germans have caused others in German history.
Yeah.
There's just, for a long time, that was very painful for me and very suffering. And at some point, I just realized that this was there historically, so that certain choices just wouldn't even be thought of as choices anymore. Like for me, it's so very clear that, you know, I would never go to war. I would never cause that kind of suffering to anybody. It's just not an option. You know, if you've grown up in Germany, you've seen this, you've experienced it. I mean, it's in your blood, it's in your bones.
Yeah.
You know, the only possible response to it is to be peaceful and to be in the open heart. You know, I mean, to me, there's just no other possible response in this being. You know, I know other people will respond differently, but here that's the only choice, and that is so clear. And it's taken me a long time to realize that that's part of the learning that was there in my life, to be in that clarity.
Yes, yeah, so that it never happens again.
And, you know, the only way it will never happen again is if enough people are in that clarity, so that it really won't happen again.
Yeah. You know, the transformation that the planet needs is a transformation of consciousness, like this little thing that I read from Jesus, or whoever you think it came from.
Oh, I do believe you, Gina. You know,
I don't need you. I am speaking to the general audience.
Right.
You know, there's in the I'm going to read one paragraph from Choice and Will Introduction. It said, Jesus is saying in the introduction, "Some of you may be interested in reading this because I have dictated it, while others may reject it for the same reason. However, the authorship is not the point. Choosing to believe or not believe that I am behind this book is not as significant as whether you choose to believe the words in it. That choice is much more important because that choice could be transformative."
Yes, yes, yes. And you know, at the same time, I think it may be significant to people that it does come from Jesus, because there are people who are, who will be touched by that message coming through you in those words, who are not touched by, the Course in Miracles, which is another channeled book by Jesus, or I think there's something else.
It's a little easier to understand than A Course in Miracles.
Yes, a lot easier, easier. And they may not be touched by the Bible either, because, the stories are, well, they're old, and the language doesn't necessarily speak to everybody. So, my sense is that there's a point to books, to Jesus speaking in that way through you to people now, because there's people who will be curious and who want to read something that is easier for them to access than, the Bible and the Course in Miracles. And, there's some other work that's also channeled from Jesus that I don't know, but you're not the only one, and you probably won't be the last one either.
I asked both Jesus and Mary if I could write this book without putting their name on it. They said no. I couldn't, and I had to respect that. So it's not that I wanted to put out a book by them, knowing what I know about how people feel about channeling and this kind of thing. It's not what I wanted. I just would like to put that out there. It wasn't really my choice, but I could not say no to this.
Yes.
The books they're beautiful. I'm happy to put my name on them. I feel blessed to have brought them through. And whether people believe that they came from those beings or not is really not as important as whether what they say is helpful to them.
Yes, yes, yes.
And that's always the test. Always the test. You should never just believe something just because someone said it. It always should be tested within yourself. We're meant to hone our little truth meter inside, by we're here to learn to be discriminating, and
yes.
If something doesn't ring true, don't accept it by any means.
Actually, that's one of the things that drew me to Buddhism in the beginning, is the Buddha was very clear. There's an instruction to his disciples, his students, to not believe anything that's said by a master or by an elder, but to really check it out for themselves. And if they see the truth of what is said for themselves, then it's right to believe it. And wow, that is so true and so modern,
I love that quote by Buddha. When I ran across that, I was just in awe of it. It was beautiful. Of course, I don't have it in my mind.
I don't either, and it probably depends on the translation.
Yeah.
But, my sense is that should always be the testing.
Yeah. And this is, I learned this early on as a channel. That, you don't trust someone just because they say who they are. You trust something because it rings true, because it's helpful, because it brings you, and what does ring true mean? Or what does truthful mean? It's whatever brings you closer to love and peace. Within your own being and within your life.
Yes, yes.
And if it doesn't, forget it.
And I was going to mention that, you can't underplay your own role as a channel here, because, you couldn't channel something and put it out there if it didn't ring true to you, if it weren't true to you, and if you didn't feel the energy of that being as one that is loving and peaceful and you know, that trans.
I think we lost her. Hmm. I think Grace might have to reboot her computer. She told me this could happen. Hmm. Here she comes.
Hello, Gina.
Hello, that was pretty quick, actually. I was about to
Yeah.
launch into a new lecture, a lecture that I prepared just for this occasion.
Yeah, I seem to be there doubly. I'm not
Oh,
sure
you are, yeah.
what's happening there, but yeah.
The frozen you didn't sign off.
No, that's right. And
Oh, there she goes.
there she goes. There you go. So, Gina, I wonder whether this would be a good place to look at the comments from people to see whether you know, whether there are any comments that
Yeah,
are questions.
yeah.
So I'll just check on those. Okay. So there's Mullet who says, how can one know that the channeled entity is fully sincere and honest? I think you pretty much answered that.
Yeah, you really can't. You know, there are a lot of things that we take on faith, aren't there? A lot of things that we decide to believe. And it's important that we choose to, that's part of our free will, is we get to choose what we're going to believe. And this is a very important choice. In fact, that's what the next book by Jesus is going to be about, is how important our beliefs are in creating the reality that we experience. And so, you know, it's very important to choose your beliefs carefully.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I like the test that I put my beliefs to. If it doesn't lead you to more love and greater peace within yourself and within your life, then you don't need it. You don't need it. It's useless. It's probably worse than useless.
Mm.
You don't need many beliefs. You only need the truth. And the truth is whatever takes you to love and peace within yourself and within life.
That's a very good quote. Do you want to write that down and post it? Send it to me.
I'll try.
It's just so nicely succinct. I love that. Yeah. So let me look what else is there, Gina. Barry, this is also Mullet. Barry Long said, the living master never returns. He teaches the truth he is in his own body, his own time. When that is finished, all that he had to say and do is said and done. If it weren't, he would not die. What are your thoughts on this?
I don't have any thoughts on it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure really what's being said or what's being asked. What is being asked here?
My sense is that what's being asked is, can a teacher really survive the death of his body? Or is the teacher gone with the death of his body?
Oh,
And,
well,
you know.
yeah. Then this is again a question of, let me say, if you had the experiences that I have had with other dimensional beings, that would not be a question. And you know, if I were the only person on this planet who's ever had an experience with a being in another dimension, then that would be one thing. You know, throw me in the booby hatch. But this is an experience that human beings have had throughout time of other beings in other dimensions, of being able to see them, speak to them, feel them, being taken away at death, near-death experiences. I mean, the experiences are so common. The evidence, you know, it's as much evidence as there could possibly be, but it isn't scientific. So then people who need scientific evidence won't believe, and they won't take the evidence that is there. In that way, scientific materialists are just like fundamentalist Christians. They believe what they want to believe, and there's no changing their minds. But you know, I have often said, if you meaning you know, anybody, you had the experience that I have had in my life of beings from other dimensions, there would be no question. You would not turn your back on this gift. You would not turn your back on such a gift. You could not. You could not. I could not. I made great sacrifices in my life. I lost many relationships, friendships. Many things fell by the wayside. There were many sacrifices. I could, you know, feel really quite martyred by this gift if I was going to go into the Christian imagery again. But, you know, it's not an easy path because you have to be willing to just trust what you trust and speak your truth and put that out into the world and live life as you see fit. And I'm committed to that. I'm committed to other people finding their truth and living that in the world, and not just being kowtowed or scared away by intimidating people who are really blind. You know, it's like why should I listen to people who've not seen what I've seen, experienced what I've experienced? Why would I not trust my own experience over someone who's not had my experience? Why should I listen to them judge my experience? It doesn't make any sense. I'm mature enough that I know better than that. That my experience is what is true to me.
And you know, Gina, I mean, it's undoubtedly true that, you know, somehow the Christian religion, or the Jesus as a presence, as a living presence, wouldn't be spoken about in the way that he is by people if he weren't still present. You know, somehow, and in the Eastern tradition, I mean, it's very well known that Eastern teachers have a way of connecting with people even after their death, like Ramana Maharshi, you know, has connected with many people, including Francis Bennett, who felt very, very feels connected with him, and other teachers too. So my sense is also, you know, we want to kind of somehow understand things with our minds, and there is a bit of a mystery as long, I think, as we're not fully, our minds are not fully liberated. There's a bit of a mystery as to how there can be these beings that are present and that have devoted their being to the, you know, to enlighten us. But undoubtedly that is so. I mean, you know, I wouldn't have a doubt about it either. But you know, it's also okay for those people who doubt it to doubt it.
Yeah. This life, this world is so miraculous, so mysterious, so beyond our comprehension that really pretty much anything is possible.
Mm. Yes. Yes.
And just because just because we don't want to, or it isn't in our experience, we don't want to believe it, isn't in our experience, or someone tells us not to believe it, or it doesn't fit our paradigm, or it doesn't fit our religious beliefs. There's so much in that category, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And I mean, maybe there's really also disagreement. I mean, maybe Barry Long really felt that was the truth. So otherwise he wouldn't have said it.
Yeah, I wouldn't presume to know what Barry Long really meant by that.
Yes.
And hold an argumentative conversation
Yeah.
based on someone else's quote,
Mm-hmm.
And things get taken out of context too. They're set in a certain context, and that's the thing about the truth is that you can be speaking the truth in one context, and then in another context you might say something that sounds quite the opposite, but for the context it is the truth. Because the truth, when we speak the truth, it comes out of the moment, and that moment is always contextual.
Yes, yes, that's true. Yeah,
it can't be separated.
Mm-hmm. So Gina, there's one more comment from Wendy, who says, Gina, I really appreciate your clear exposition of the evolution of choice and free will in the dance of awakening. Very helpful. I look forward to reading this book.
I should say probably that all my books right now until May 15th are for sale for 99 cents, my ebooks. All 12 of my ebooks are for sale for 99 cents. So rush to your nearest Kindle store. But, truly, I really want my books to get out to as many people as possible. That's why we do this. And I just think it would be lovely to have as many people as possible get their hands on them. And so that's,
Yeah, yeah. So, Gina, do you have anything that you would still want to communicate?
I think we've covered it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel pretty complete. How about you, Grace? Have you covered it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't, there's nothing, no more questions in my mind, no more things to say. So I guess that's it for me too.
Okay. Thank you so much for doing this again. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak really directly to people about the channeling I do, and about my relationship to Jesus and Mary, because I really did want to clarify that in some way, but this is a good forum, a good way to do that. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Gina. It's been really, I wanted to have that conversation, and I really,
I know you did.
Yeah, and I felt it was an important conversation, because when you're asking that question, what would be the teaching of Jesus today? What form could it take? What form would it take? What would be communicated? I mean, here you are. You're being a tool for Jesus communicating to us. So I just felt it was something that couldn't be missed in this context.
And of course, what Jesus is saying through me is going to be specific to. It's going to be influenced by the instrument he's using and the readers that he's likely to reach.
Yes.
So he's going to use non-dual terms. He's going to speak to the people that I reach as readers. He's going to use this instrument. It's not going to be the same as he would sound through another instrument to another set of readers.
Yes.
It's very important to make that distinction, because the thing about being a channel is that the channel's vocabulary and their background is used by the being who is using them as an instrument. So there is a melding together. There is a shaping, or a shaping on the part of the instrument, on the part of me, of this message. I am in part responsible for shaping this message in the way it's been shaped. And so if he doesn't sound like Jesus sounded in something else, or at some other time, at some other point or time and place, it's because he's speaking through me at this point in time in this culture to this audience. And that's what he explained in the introduction of the book, and I appreciate that, and it makes sense.
Yes, I mean, it's good to be clear about that, and also just acknowledge that any instrument will produce a certain kind of sound, you know, like a musical instrument. If you're flute, there'll be flute sounds. If you're violin, there'll be violin sounds. And, you know, they can both be the truth.
Yeah. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Gina. And thank you to everybody for watching. This is the second but last session of the the Easter retreat, online retreat, on the question of, if Jesus were alive today, would he be a non-dual spiritual teacher? We'll have a closing session in about just half an hour's time, and that's the session where you're welcome to, you know, even come on to the Hangout and share your feelings, your responses, your experiences. It's all welcome. So if you want to join, please do. And so I'll sign off until then. Oh, just to give you the website, it's www.living-from-love.com, and you register on the register page, and you'll get the link to the last session. Or you can also get the video just by going to my YouTube channel. That's gracebubeck.com. Grace Bubeck, Bubeck. So thank you, Gina. Many thanks for sharing your Jesus with us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And bye to everybody, and I'll see you in half an hour's time.